Shalom חברים. Today, Parashat Achrei Mot-Kedoshim, even though we're going to focus on Kedoshim. And we're going to do this with the help of two philosophers today. We're going to have Rudolf, Otto, and we're going to have Abraham Joshua Heschel. Very different from one another. Let's see what happens. So, the reader is invited to direct their mind to a moment of deeply felt religious experience, as little as possible qualified by other forms of consciousness. Whoever cannot do this, whoever knows no such moment in their experience, is requested to read no farther. All right, this is interesting. This actually comes from a book called The Idea of the Holy, which was written by a German Lutheran, a theologian and philosopher named Rudolf Otto. And the book was published in 1917. Now, I sometimes bring Jewish philosophers, sometimes non-Jewish philosophers to this channel. And you know, as the Rambam said, Shma emet mimi she'amara. Basically, hear the truth for whomever said it. We're going to have philosophers from all religions, thoughts, and opinions coming here to help us. So, why am I bringing the idea of the holy from Rudolf Otto? Is because of our portion Kedoshim. Kedoshim really literally translates to holy. And the reason why the portion is called Kedoshim is because of the beginning of the portion, which starts with Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor. God spoke to Moses and said, Daber el kol adat bnei Israel, ve'amarta lehem kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. Speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, your God Adonai, am holy. Now, after that, the portion continues to specify many commandments, almost all of which deal with social justice. So you have commandments about relations in the family and how to behave to one another. You have commandments about general respect to each other. For example, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is in this portion. There are calls for just labor practices, so to basically not delay pay for your worker. There are commandments about charity for the poor, about basically leave the corners of your field, unharvested, so the poor can come and take. There are commandments about the care of the land. There are commandments about a fair justice system, and so on and so forth. And because of this very impressive list of commandments dealing with social justice, the very common interpretation of Kedoshim tihiyu, and you shall be holy, is basically be people who do their best to repair the world and repair the society in which you live in. And because this is a very common interpretation, I decided today to actually pivot and go in the opposite direction. Basically, to really look at holiness, not from the rational, ethical standpoint, but from the experience of holiness, which is really what Rudolf Otto is talking about. So to explain this, just want to say that Otto's book, The Idea of the Holy, was very successful and in religious studies all over the world in the 20th century and across all religions. So it was really studied in all different faculties, including in Israel. So Otto coined the term the numinous. And the numinous was basically the term for human religious experience. Now, what was his chidush? What was his innovation? His innovation is that he looked at the religious experience, at religion, not just as history or doctrine, as something that is, but that it's something that is really limited to human experience. And in that, he basically put religion into a phenomenology, which was really popular at the time when he wrote the book. And so he said that numinous, that religious experience that comes from the human psyche, is actually made out of three components. The first is the mysterium. What is the mysterium? It's basically the transcendence of God, the transcendence of the divine. It is the fact that God is defined as the holy other, as something that we cannot perceive, something that we cannot understand. And from that mysterium, from that really idea or feeling that there is something greater in us than us that we cannot understand, come two opposite feelings. One is the tremendum and the other is the fascinans. Okay, so what is the tremendum? The tremendum is the negative feeling, is the fear. Okay, it's the fear of God, the fear of, okay, if there is something that is other, that is transcendent, that is unexplainable, that makes me feel small and insignificant and fearful, right? It's also the feeling that one might feel when standing, to me, sometimes it happens to me, standing in front of the vast ocean and the power of nature, something that makes me feel so small, right? This is the tremendum. The fascinance is the other side of it, which is the attraction. It's the lure into what's so great around us. Is those moments when we understand that everything around us is too perfect and beautiful and inspiring. So again, the numinous is made of the mysterium, the holy otherness that provokes these two opposite feelings of the tremendum and the fascinance. It's very important to mention that this whole theory came exactly as a critique for the rationalist approach to Judaism since the Age of Reason, as really kind of like an ethical code, a suggestion for people to implement, morality and social justice. So this actually comes to counter that as a non-rational thing. So it's kind of going back. And the synthesis of the two is that actually the feeling of the numinous, which is non-rational, is what inspires the ethical behavior, which is rational. So that is in it. And let me quote again from the idea of the holy. The holy is the fullest sense of the word, is combined complex category, the combining of which is peculiar to religion. It unites in a unique harmony the rational and the non-rational. The non-rational is the numinous, with its elements of tremendum, mysterium, and fascinans. The rational is the ethical and the conceptual element, the idea of God as good, as righteous, as purposeful. So this is really in his words. And now let me bring it back to Judaism. So in Judaism, we have the concept of Yirat Shamayim. What is Yirat Shamayim? Is literally can translate to the fear of heaven, the fear of the above. It could be also Yirat Hashem, translates to the fear of God. But Yirat Shamayim that is mentioned in the Torah and in the Talmud also has that duality. It doesn't only mean the fear of God, but also the awe of God, right? How many of us translates the Yamim Noraim, comes from the same root, the high holidays, right? We call Yamim Noraim. It comes from the same root of Yirat Shamayim, as the days of awe. Right, it's the days of awe and not necessarily the days of fear. But there is some fear in it, right? There is always that duality. This brings me to our other thinker, Abraham Joshua Heschel, the Polish-American philosopher, born in 1907, died in 1972. And Heschel really communicates with Rudolf Otto here when it comes to the sense of wonder, the fascinance, and really what Heschel called radical amazement. And I have here probably one of his more famous works, A God in Search of Man, in which he really discusses the concept of radical amazement. And I want to read a little bit from it. So Heschel says, the beginning of our happiness lies in the understanding that life without wonder is not worth living. What we lack is not a will to believe, but a will to wonder. Awareness of the divine begins with wonder. It is the result of what man does with his higher incomprehension. And this really communicates with Otto that it is that incomprehension, it is that mysterium that provokes, and Heschel likes to stay in the positive, that wonder. And inside Heschel's theory, there is, of course, the synthesis that this sense of wonder, if you walked in the world with constant radical amazement, this will inspire you to see other people, to see nature, and God itself as something that is basically almost forcing an ethical way of being. So, according to both Otto and Heschel, you shall be holy indeed means to engage in acts of social justice, but these acts must be inspired by the numinous, or if you will, by radical amazement. And by viewing the world with a constant sense of awe, the duality of fear and attraction, and the humility in recognizing there is so much more that is beyond our understanding. Shabbat Shalom.